Good morning, my magnificent friends. It's Friday, so of course it's Tea with Sue. I'm Sue Paulson, your magnificence mentor. Oh, how fun it is to be back with you today. I'm in kind of a mischievous mood today, so who knows where this is going to go. Have you ever had a time in your life when the joke was on you? Well, this happened to me this morning. A couple of days ago, I was at my favorite drugstore and kind of pawing through the clear out bin to see if I could find any bargains. I like bargains, and maybe you do too. So in the bin where there were lots of cosmetics that they were clearing out, and I'm thinking, well, I wonder if I could find a nice lipstick. So sure enough, I found a nice lipstick in the bin. And then I thought, well, I haven't polished my nails for a while. I haven't put a color on them for a while. So I found this other little bottle and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. It was only $3. And so I thought, oh, I could use a new nail polish. So this morning in getting ready for Tea with Sue, I thought, oh, well, I'll polish my nails before I come on to do the call. So I'm giving the bottle a good shake and I'm undoing that. I'm thinking it's kind of a cool bottle for nail polish. And I'm undoing the top and I pull it out and there's this weird looking applicator. But I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess they've gone away from the brush. And so I'm busy stroking it onto my thumbnail. And it's all streaky and weird. And I'm going, well, it doesn't look right. So I put my glasses on and I'm thinking, well, this is nail polish, right? I dig my glasses out and I look and I'm going, sheer lip paint. Oh, well now. So I had a little chuckle at myself, as I'm fond of doing these days, because I've discovered that some of the antics that I get up to from time to time are absolutely hilarious. And so I had a little laugh. Now, I could have had a different reaction. And today I want to talk about the whole blaming and shaming thing that we tend to have running in our heads and unfortunately running in our lives that is not serving us very well at all. In fact, it's a disservice to us and those around us. So let me tell you how this works. So there's a triangle. So lots of things work in threes, right? So if you imagine at the top of the triangle, there's someone we could call a persecutor. And then at the triangle down at the bottom, on the one side is the victim, and then on the other side is the rescuer. Now, this is a cycle. So it works this way. When something happens, let's say we do something wrong. So here's how victim or persecutor, victim, and rescuer played out in my head this morning. So I was feeling a little bit victimized by the company that put their lip gloss in a bottle that looked like nail polish. And there was a part of me thinking, wow, what's wrong with that company? That they would do that to me, that they would trick me like that and spend my precious money, and then it isn't what I bought. So I could have been feeling quite victimized by this. And then I might have stormed back to the pharmacy and said to them, this is wrong. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I thought I bought, and demand a refund. And so feeling victimized, then I'm looking for a rescuer. I got persecuted by this company because they created a product that misled me, so I thought. And then I'm feeling victimized, and so I'm looking for a rescuer. So I go back to the drugstore and maybe ask for a refund. So now that might end up in a satisfactory process, or it might not. So what if I talk to the clerk and she says to me, well, that's your fault. It clearly says on here that this is lip gloss. So no, you've taken the wrapping off it. You can't return it because it's considered used at this point. So no, we're not going to give you a refund. And what's wrong with you that you didn't read it ahead of time? Well, so then I'm feeling persecuted by this person and a victim again. So then maybe I'm going to go and tell 10 of my friends to share that my tale of woe and lament and so on. I'm looking for another rescuer, which I may or may not find. Or maybe one of my friends takes pity on me and says, Sue, how much did you pay for that? Well, it was $3. It was a clearance, right? It was $3. And she says, look, here's $3. I like that shade. You haven't used it. I'll buy it off your hands. Whew, all right. And then I'm feeling vindicated. So it's kind of a funny cycle. Funny, not funny, ha ha, but it's kind of strange in the way it plays out. You've probably seen this on the playground or experienced it yourself on the playground, where one child is bullying another and a third child steps in to rescue the victim. And sometimes that works and the persecutor goes away. But sometimes what can happen, and I've seen it happen, is both the persecutor and the victim turn on the rescuer. And then the rescuer becomes the victim and somebody else is the persecutor. And what's the result? Well, it's mayhem on the playground, right? Everybody walks away feeling resentful of what just transpired. It's not a good feeling. Well, how in the world can you go through your day if you're filled with this sense of victimization and you're filled with this sense of resentment over how you're being treated? It doesn't work very well. So, and of course, strangely enough, we play this little game with ourselves. And so we can be persecutor, victim, and rescuer all in the same thing, right inside our heads. Now, is that weird or what? But it happens. So let me give you an example of how this can work. So I've been working somewhat diligently on shedding some pounds that accumulated over the whole lockdown time and times when I just was in winter and so on, when I was too sedentary. Apparently, walking to the fridge and lifting food out of the refrigerator is not considered calorie burning exercise. In fact, it's considered calorie gaining on the body, and I have the evidence to prove it. Now, I could easily, and there's days when I have played the role of persecutor and blamed myself for this particular activity. So get your head out of the fridge. What's wrong with you? You keep eating and eating and you're not getting enough exercise and you're spending too much time sitting and you won't go for a walk, and on and on and on. And so that's my punishing parent, right? That's just going after me and going after me and going after me. And then there's a little kid inside, my not okay kid, who's saying, but it's hard and it's cold out and I don't feel like it, and the food tastes so good, and I was reading a really good book and I wanted chocolate, and I'm making all kinds of excuses. So this little dialogue inside my head goes on and on and on. until I decide to rescue myself and say a variety of things. There's lots of things that I could say to rescue myself. I could, and this is where compassion comes in. I could say, oh, Sue, I know you don't like the way you look in the mirror, and you've been struggling, and you know you're emotional eating, and it's okay. You'll get through this. You'll be able to do this. Come on. And I start encouraging myself, and that works me out of the cycle and onto something better. But if all I do is run this program of blaming myself and feeling shame, it's debilitating to the body. That negative emotion sets up the stress hormones in the body to the point where it's just the flood of nasty chemicals that go through our body isn't healthy for us. As soon as compassion comes in, and maybe I have a little grin and shake my head and say, oh, Sue, you're just doing the best you can, and today's just not one of those days. Oh, well, maybe tomorrow will be better. As soon as I switch into that more positive focus, have a little laugh at myself and so on. I mean, just a grin triggers endorphins in the body, right? I mean, all you have to do is go into your bathroom mirror and make funny faces and grin at yourself and so on. Well, even if it's totally artificial, the body doesn't know that. The body goes, oh, endorphins, 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 and it just floods in. So you got to do something to counteract that whole focus. Maybe your rescuer in this situation is I phone a friend and say, oh, I've done it again, and I'm so upset with myself. And now, Sue, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. What if you think about switching to this? What if you try that? Whatever. And so I get soothed and kind of rescued by that whole scenario. So we really want to take a look at what's going on in our interactions, not only with ourselves, but of course our interactions with others, because this whole finding fault is just not helpful. It's just not going to get you where you want to go in life. And it certainly isn't the path to your own magnificence. It's not. It's something that needs to be dismantled and tossed out of your life. So when I think of, well, how do we do that? Because this program was probably seeded from the time we were very, very small. We were just tiny when we got this, because our parents naturally wanted us to grow up to be solid citizens with kindness and generosity and a willingness to take responsibility and all those kinds of things. But they maybe didn't know how to parent us in the best way. So in a way that would have served us better. I guess I'll put it that way. Typically, parents raise their kids the way they were raised to a large extent. Now, if we're conscious parents, we don't do that. We find different ways. So I think my son probably would visit the psychologist coach for different reasons than I did, because I parented him differently. Did I make mistakes? Oh yeah, tons. and shook my head. But of course, I made mistakes because I didn't know. So how can you find fault with yourself when you didn't know how to do something in the first place? And so when you did it, quotes, wrong, when the result was less than desirable, it was less than what you expected, how can you beat yourself up for that? And yet we do. And how can other people who are in roles of positions of authority beat up on people that don't know, that they haven't been shown how to do it? And even if they have been shown, I remember taking a course one time about how to train a learner in a work environment. And the biggest no-no was to never, ever, ever reprimand a learner. When they're in learning mode, they don't know what they don't know lots of times. And when they start learning it, they're awkward, they're clumsy, they don't have it all together yet. So it takes time, and they need to be shown, they need to be told, they need to be shown again, and they need to practice and so on. Well, that takes time. And if you reprimand partway through the process, they say, okay, forget it. I'm not learning that. So they get resentful and they resist the learning process. So it's not a good idea to reprimand a learner. But what about if they've learned it? They know full well. Well, you could come down on them full force and say, you know better than that, and rail at them about this, that, and the other thing, which again is going to trigger some resentment because of the way you did it. It doesn't mean that you don't correct people when they're off track, but you do it in such a way that they understand that their responsibility is to handle things differently. And they do know better. They know better. So a pointed reminder with compassion goes a whole lot farther than pushing that person into feeling shamed. If you don't know, shame as an emotional factor in relation to our well-being is the most debilitating, destructive emotion we can feel. And people who feel shame consistently and constantly get closer and closer to suicide. So be aware of that, because that's a big deal in our culture. There are a lot of people who are feeling helpless and hopeless because they felt so ashamed of who they are or their circumstances or what's happened to them in their lives. They've been beaten down and beaten down and beaten down with no one to help them rise up, that eventually they say, it's too painful. It's just too painful. And they check out. Well, what a loss of resources, of a bright and energized soul when that happens. So this week, I really want you to think about or go into your memory, how many times have you played the blame game? How many times have you persecuted yourself? Have you persecuted others? How many times have you felt victimized by what was going on when in fact you weren't really a victim? It was your perspective. You chose to be a victim rather than say, oh, well, I've put myself here. I'm responsible for doing this. I didn't do it knowingly, but I did it anyway. Here I am. And so I have a choice. Am I going to have this wreck my day, or am I going to look at it from a slightly different perspective and maybe have a good laugh over my own quirky nature or the fact that a crazy coyote just played a trick on me and I'm lost. So it's up to you, right? Because we live in our bodies and we live in our minds and our hearts and our souls. So it's up to us. We're the only ones that can alter that perspective or move ourselves from wherever we are to wherever we want to be. So that's one of the big things with unlocking and learning to embrace your own magnificence is to notice self-defeating behavior. Notice when you're self-sabotaging. And instead of beating up on yourself, instead of blaming and shaming yourself, then what can you do differently to honor that moment and then rise above that? It may be that some of your programs need to be changed or tweaked. I'm not sure it's possible to get rid of those old programs that are so deep-seated, but it's sure possible to not let that be your default. It just absolutely is. It takes some practice and it takes some consistent focus, but you can do this. And you know why you can do this, because you're that magnificent. So this week, just observe your behavior, other people's behavior, see if you can spot when that little cycle begins that's not healthy for any of us. And then decide, okay, what am I going to do about that? How am I going to shift? How am I going to change? What am I going to do next time, now that I've caught it? If you're enjoying Tea with Sue, you can subscribe to my channel. And for even more Tea with Sue, you can download my free app, The Magnificence Mentor. And every week I post my videos there. You can always come back to Global Strong and watch the live stream on Fridays if you're available at this time. It's so fun working with you, and I'm just wishing you the most glorious weekend. It's our last weekend of August coming up. Hard to believe the year has gone by so fast. Have an amazing time. Feel your magnificence, because it's there. I know you can, and we'll see you next time.